creating loving ecosystems that can support fruit trees. Water, what you do about water is of prime importance. So things like roads, even dirt roads and pathways and things like that, they're very useful as means of collecting water. The water tends to run off this sort of thing a lot better than it does off grass. So with a small amount of water you can get water flow. Now the trouble I've had on my property, where here in this part of Australia the climate is enormously variable. We average about 650 millimetres a year, but that can vary from 300 to 1400. So in the dry times you want to be collecting as much water as you can, but the trouble with that is in the wet times, if that water is just going straight onto your trees or wherever you want it, then things can get too wet. So the idea of the latest version of my wicking bed, where the thing will overflow if you get too much water, so that the water level always stays at a set distance or deeper than a set distance from the surface. And the leaky weirs is another method, because the weirs overflow and they just are tending to control the water table out in the vicinity of the weirs. So both of those systems serve to maximize water during the drier times, but also you don't tend to get too much water during the wet times. It doesn't concentrate it and make the situation worse. Of course, if you're in flood times, you can still have things die due to wet feet just naturally, but you don't really want to be doing anything that makes the situation worse. So here's a third method that I've found to be able to effectively collect water, but also to turn it off when you start getting lots of water. So in this here is the gully that runs down the side of the road, and it gets a significant amount of flow in it. So it's got collecting water from 100 meters up the road there. Water flows down this side of the road. I'm not doing anything with the water on that side of the road, but water flows down the gully on this side of the road and down through here. Now under here there's seepage mat installed in the gully, and that connects to this pipe here. That's a seepage pipe as well. That's the slotted pipe with a sock on it. There's actually another one deeper down in there, and so that's slowly collecting water, seepage water that seeps down in through the ground. Then over here, where that pipe comes out, this is just the culvert under my entryway. If we're getting a lot of water coming down, it overflows the seepage. The seepage is relatively slow, but so if we get a lot of water flowing down here, it can come down here and through this shade cloth here and flow into this gully pit. The gully pit has two pipes here, which are where the seepage water comes through. It connects to those two slotted pipes with the socks on them. So I get seepage water coming out of here. But if I get too much water flowing so that it flows over the top, this collects extra and it goes into there. This gully pit, if you're doing something like this, it's worthwhile to have a gully pit with your connections up high. So what's down deeper acts as a silt trap. So if there's any silt or sand or anything in it, it tends to collect in the bottom rather than go out through the outlet pipe. This outlet pipe here, it goes to feed to water my fruit trees. Now that pipe goes underground for about 35 meters in this direction over to the fruit trees over there, and we'll go and have a look at the other end. Okay. So this is the other end of that pipe. It has a frog flap on it so that little animals and things don't climb up there, but water can still come through it. And this comes into a little soakage channel that's just a C-shaped thing that can fill up with water through that pipe, and from there the water seeps down to water the fruit trees. Now this, if I just leave it normally open like that, the water that's collected up there will just flow in here. But if I've got loads of rain and I don't really need any more watering in there, I can just take that off and plug it, put a thing on the end, and that water just backs up and it sits in, fills up the gully pit at the other end, and the water just flows over the top. So basically I effectively have a tap where when I'm getting too much rain and I don't want extra water going in there, I can just effectively shut it off and get no more water in here. So that gives me the ability to be able to control how much water goes into my fruit trees. With natives I don't worry, but fruit trees they're harder to allow to go by themselves. The thing that I have learnt though is that the rate of growth of fruit trees is really dependent on water. So if you're just going with an ecosystem type approach, then because you're not there watering them all the time, they'll probably grow slower and maybe take longer to fruit. But I get around that by just planting more fruit trees. For a start, I'm planting more for the reason that some may do well and some don't. And I expect about 50% of the fruit trees I plant not to do well. And I also plant more because I want to share them with the birds and the animals and things. So I try to plant things so that I've got at least 10 times as much as what I could possibly use, so that I can share them with the birds and the animals and things like that. At the moment the fruit trees are still a bit small and I'm having to protect them a bit, but once they get bigger I expect it to have much more fruit than I can possibly use, and so the animals and birds and things will be welcome to share in the bounty. And so they encourage the ecosystem. I'll get more birds and animals coming in here, doing things, adding their poo and fertilizing things in various ways. And also if it attracts the birds will be eating bugs and grubs and things like that. So just encouraging the wildlife in an orchard situation, providing you've got loads and loads and loads of fruit, the wildlife in there is actually going to help you in the long run.